Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Football Funhouse. All three of us are here tonight. Say hello, Steve.
Hello, Sal.
Say hello, Kevin.
Hello, Kevin.
All right, back on mute for you. Kevin is he's working away over there, hardworking guy over there. You know, good family man. He's posting videos of how much his daughter likes me more than Uncle Steve, and she even likes Tucker more than Uncle Steve. But we all know
who doesn't really. I mean, who doesn't like Tucker more than Steve?
Even his own family likes, everybody more than Steve.
I'm not even going to argue that. He is better than me.
Everyone's better than Steve.
Everyone's better than Brandon.
That is not true.
Everybody knows that.
Well, that's factually correct. We have live evidence of that.
So we are here for the week 3. It's week 3 already, Steve. You know, this happens every year. It's like we feel like we're waiting for the season to get underway. Then all of a sudden, boom, we're 3 weeks in or a quarter of the way through the fantasy football season. Really, it's only 13 weeks. So just, kind of sort of the quarter pole of the season. And we've seen a lot of high scoring. Touchdowns are up across the league, both passing and rushing. But rushing yardage, Steve, is something I've noticed is down. We don't have a lot of big rushing totals going into week 3. Do you think that that's going to change around the league? You feel like this is just a passing league now, and that's where we're at?
I think that it will flip-flop a little bit. I think that the rushing touchdown, the rushing numbers will go up. They tend to do that a little bit more later on in the season. Teams need to be more conscientious about wins, controlling games, running the ball more, running the clock more. So I think as the season goes on, that just naturally will happen. It'll average out a little bit more. But I do think that the high-scoring games might just be something that we are going to be seeing now in the NFL. Whether you want to attribute that to the different rules, the rules that the players are trying to play, the defensive players not being able to put their hands on the receivers, stuff like that. It could be a little bit of that. The talent could be there a little bit more. So I do like the high scoring, the rushing. Also, there's a lot of backfields that have more than one running back there now. So as the bell cow numbers go down, you're going to have carries and yardage split between two guys more often than not. So the totals might not be there for any single player, but maybe they're for teams. They might go back up a little bit towards the average, but I think that's going to even out as the season wears on.
Yeah, I definitely agree that the penalties have prolonged multiple drives, have given teams opportunities to score touchdowns when drives would have been over, and that is definitely factoring in. And basically, let's call it what it is. I think the NFL knows. The NFL has always been most popular because of gambling. There's no secret about that, but it's always been straight up gambling, betting on the games. And over the recent years, fantasy has taken a lead in that. They know that high-scoring offenses and lots of points are going to make people excited to be a part of fantasy football, which drives up the viewership and drives up basically just everything. We know that players, kids these days, wear the jerseys of players from all around the league, not just their hometown teams anymore. It's really a widespread thing now. And, that's it. So we should probably get into the games. And we'll start off with the Thursday night game here. And we'll bring Kevin in, who's now ready to join us. Hello, Kevin.
Yeah, before we get started, I want to ask you guys, because I'm curious. We're through 2 games, and obviously, you guys watch a lot of football. I watch a lot of football. Most of our listeners, I would imagine, watches a lot of football. Do you feel like the game is slower and it's impacting your viewing enjoyment? Obviously, I know that I watch Red Zone when I'm not watching a Patriots game, so I really only watch one full game a week. I'm guessing you guys are similar, but in general, with the penalties and the replays, I don't know the stats as far as the game length, but it seems to me like it's longer. And is that impacting how you guys are viewing the games and your enjoyment and all? Because my concern is that the NFL might have gone too far with the rules. We've talked about that on many occasions. And is it impacting the enjoyment?
Here's where I'm at. Baseball games could go quicker for me, right? Football games could take all day and night. Because if I'm watching Red Zone, like you're saying, Kevin, I want to get in as much as I can, and I want it to be expanded as long as I can. But yeah, those games that used to end around 7:15 are clearly going to 7:30, 7:45. It used to be where you'd wrap up, you'd have an hour to go take care of some things, eat some dinner, be with the family, whatever, and then get ready for the night game. But now it's like, well, you got 15 minutes maybe before that last game is hanging on. And so I don't disagree with that. I'm sure you watch one full game a week Sunday afternoons, but we probably all watch the Thursday night game, the Sunday night game, and the Monday night game. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm just such a lover of football that it doesn't bother me how long they take. Yeah, I'm on the East Coast, much like you, Kevin, and I got to get up early. But, man, I really enjoy this game. And for me, if there was any way to watch it 7 days a week, I would. I know that would be plausible for players and the way it would set up. That's just not something that's never going to happen. But I love it. So take 4 hours. I don't give a damn.
I'm in the same boat. I do not have a problem with how long the games take. I will watch it whenever it's on. I will watch the Jets and the Browns, which, before the season started, might have been a game that you look at and you're just like, I don't want to watch this game. I'm actually excited to watch this game and to see what these teams can do. And I know fantasy has a lot to do with that, with my, wanting to watch other teams that I'm not necessarily a fan of. But here I am. Here I sit. Here I will sit every time a game's on.
Right there?
No, not right here. I'll sit in a much more comfortable seat.
Oh. I was saying that looks a little like an awkward position to watch games.
Yeah, it wouldn't be preferable.
Yeah,
I would do it.
So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Let's get into the games. As you said, Sal, I'm going to take us through the games. When we've removed that role from Steve because he was terrible at it. We're going to try and move things along a little bit quicker tonight. We will start off with the Thursday games. We're going to do something a little bit different. What we're going to do tonight is go through each game, and I'm going to give you some player predictions based on ESPN. This is the Falafel League scoring format, so you all know that. That's a half-point PPR league. Basically.
Yeah, I know that well. I won it last year.
Oh, you did? Do you have a trophy to prove that? Have you been able to prove that?
No, our commissioner sucks.
Oh. Anyway, I'm gonna go with the ESPN projections for some players that I find interesting in these games, and we're gonna start off with the Jets versus the Browns. Which, hey, it's Thursday Night Football, and it's the Jets versus the Browns. Are you excited for that? I know I am. One guy that on the Jets side of the ball that I am interested to see. We're not going to talk about Darnold because I think that we've talked about him enough, and as a rookie quarterback, he's done some good things. But Terrell Pryor is a guy that's projected for 6.7. We saw him have a much better game this past week, starting to get a little bit more of a feel for the offense. And on top of that, it seems like he's getting healthy. There's a guy that last year came in with relatively high, expectations and then was injured all year, just didn't perform. Steve, do you think that Terrell Pryor can outperform 6.7? And even more so, do you think he's a guy that we need to start keeping an eye on?
I will say no and no. I am going to not get behind Terrell Pryor. He will have those games where he does get over that. Obviously, he'll have a nice, play down the sideline. He'll get some good yardage, get into the end zone because he's a taller dude. He's get some red zone looks, but I'm not expecting that to happen. I've not seen it, and I'm not going to be putting any stock in him, basically anybody in that passing game, other than Enunwa, who we've seen 2 weeks in a row now get a vast majority of those passing targets. And I think he's the only guy that you can really rely on. I'd want to see it for a few weeks before I'd start believing in Terrell Pryor. So I would take an under on that.
All right. The other guy on the Jet side of the ball that I find interesting, Sal, is Isaiah Crowell. Comes in at a 9.8 projection. I don't know what to do with Isaiah Crowell or Bilal Powell or any of the Jets running game, to be honest with you. I've avoided it all offseason, and I think going forward in the season, I'm going to continue to avoid it. Do you think that Crowell's a guy who looked better that we can trust going forward, and will he have better than a 9.8 this week?
I think he looked better in game one and then took a step back in game two. He's got only 24 total touches through the 2 games. That's not really a ton for a guy that you want to put stock in. We talk all the time, specifically with running backs. It's all about the volume, and he's splitting the time. And I think, Steve and I were talking about this before we came on the air. It's a passing, even to running backs. It's a passing game now. It's Bilal Powell is the guy I trust more of the two here. It was 9.6, 9.7,
9.8.
I was going to get there, Steve. I started at 6. I got this. I'm going to go no. I think he's going to finish with somewhere around 65 to 70 yards in this game and not get to the end zone. So I'm going to say no. He'll go under in this game.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. I don't buy in, as I said, and I'm not going to start now. On the other side of the ball, Antonio Callaway salvaged a day that actually wouldn't have been very good were it not for a long touchdown towards the end of the game that tied the game up. Actually, he's projected in this one as at a 5.7. We all know what Jarvis Landry can do in this offense. We keep waiting around for the next guy that I'm going to talk about. But is Callaway a guy that you have to trust going forward? And Sal, we'll ask you this question: Will he outperform a 5.7? That's a pretty low projection for a guy that's moving up the depth chart pretty quickly.
Boy, that's like probably right on the cusp. I would say, maybe 60 yards, right? So if you want to add in some, maybe 6 points in the game is what I should say, add in a couple of receptions. So I'll say, I want to say a push, but I'll say he'll go past that because I figure he'll finish somewhere around 6. But it's not a guy. I see a lot of good things. I mean, he ran under that ball. That ball was overthrown. People say it was a perfectly thrown ball. No, it was not. You could tell at about the 20 to 15-yard line, that guy turned on the jets and got under that ball in the end zone. So he has the talent. He has the ability. I am not ready to say that that Tyrod Taylor is going to be able to bring us 2 weekly wide receivers that are fantasy relevant. And we know Jarvis Landry is battling a little bit of an injury this week, but I think it's more just resting him on a short week. So no, I don't think going forward it's a guy I'm just plugging and playing every week, but I think he'll be right around 6 points this week.
Interestingly enough, Jarvis Landry, who you did say was battling a little bit of an injury, obviously limited in practice. He in this particular league format, 14.1 the first week, 9.4 the second week. He's projected at 10.3 this week, and this is one of the things that concern me about Jarvis Landry is I think that's it for him, right? I mean he'll have a couple of games where he gets bigger numbers, but obviously he's got a great floor, but if people drafted him expecting him to be a wide receiver 1, I just don't think he's ever going to be that type of guy. But we'll move on to the next guy that I had on my list for this game. The last guy that I had on my list for this game. Sal, you were a big proponent of this gentleman coming into the season, Mr. David Njoku. Only projected to get 6.5 in this one. Hasn't really had that breakout game yet for the Browns. He's got in this league format, bear with me for a second, he's got 2.8 the first week and 4 the second week. So trending up, but still not very productive.
He's gotten the targets for a tight end. He's gotten 7 targets in each game. So you like the usage as far as them working him into the offense, but it just hasn't happened yet. This is a guy I said would outperform Evan Ingram, and Evan Ingram put him in a rearview mirror last week with his performance. So I have to make this decision in a couple of places because it's a few places where I waited on tight end, and Njoku is my choice. So, geez, Kevin, what did you say the over under would be?
6 something.
I'm gonna go out on a limb.
Sorry, I was on mute there. 6.5, Sal.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's going to catch a touchdown this week, which obviously I can't predict, but I am trying to. And I'm going to say that he's going to perform at better than 6.5 this week, somewhere just around 10 points for the week for Njoku.
That'd be nice. I need him to turn it on as well. I invested in him pretty heavily this offseason, and I would like to see him do that. I think once he gets on a little bit of a roll, you'll start to see him more. I do think that eventually he'll be the second most consistent receiver in the offense. Like I said, I think similar with Landry. I don't think he's ever going to be that huge producer, maybe 1 or 2 games, but I think he'll be consistent once he gets.
Remember way back in the beginning, and I'm talking early summer, when all those targets were going to be there, all those players, and Njoku, we were talking about possibly being the 4th or maybe 5th guy with Duke Johnson and Corey Coleman and Josh Gordon and Jarvis Landry. And look where we're at now. Half of those guys aren't even on the team anymore.
Yeah.
And Duke Johnson has literally gotten 1 catch or 2 catches over 3 weeks, 3 catches over 2 weeks. So, yeah, I think I agree with you where it's going to be Landry and Njoku going forward as the 2 main target getters in that offense. But hopefully this is the week he breaks out for all of us.
Yep. All right. That will do it for the Thursday night game. The Sunday slate will kick off with the Falcons taking on the Saints. And one guy, Steve, that I am interested in here, we talked about it earlier this week. With the Saints offense, it's three guys, right? It's Drew Brees, it's Michael Thomas, who's an absolute beast right now, and it's Alvin Kamara, who we know who's had one really good game and one game that's still good, but by his standards might be a little less. But a guy that I'm curious about is Ted Ginn, projected by ESPN to get 8.2. Seems a little on the high side for me, but you're really hoping on a touchdown with that, in my opinion. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree. Ted Ginn has been the same type of wide receiver for the majority of his entire career, save for that one season that he was with Carolina, that Cam Newton just kept getting the ball to him, and he was a very viable weekly starting wide receiver. He's typically not been that guy. You're depending on volume that doesn't typically go to anybody else outside of Kamara and Michael Thomas, especially this season so far. And yeah, you'd be banking on a touchdown and hoping for that. We all kind of talk about having high floor players. He's not typically the guy that I would be banking on having that type of high floor. Couple that with comments from Sean Payton, said that they really wanted to try and get Traquan Smith involved in the offense a little bit more after the preseason that he's had. He's come out very, very slow to start this year. So I half point PPR, I would not be taking Ted Ginn to score over 8 points this week.
He's also nursing a leg injury himself this week, which is something to keep an eye on. I don't think it's threatening for him to not play, but it could slow him down and, like Steve said, give more opportunities to Traquan Smith.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I don't know. I mean, I take those comments with a grain of salt when the coach says they want to get a guy more involved. You never really know whether or not they mean it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sean Payton tends to be a pretty straight shooter, in my opinion, so maybe he does, but that'd be nice because I know a lot of people bought some stock in Traquan Smith. All right, Michael Thomas, we talked about being a beast. He's slated to get 15 or projected to get 15.9 points. Sal, based on his first two performances, that seems low.
Yeah, I'm a definite over on that. His 28 receptions are the most ever through 2 weeks in the history of the NFL.
And I will just say on his 4 career games as he's had against the Atlanta Falcons, he's got 31 of 44 targets for 410 yards and 3 touchdowns in 4 games. So Atlanta has not been a team that has caused him many problems. We know that they lost 2 of key pieces of their defense last week. And so I think him and Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, we just saw what Christian McCaffrey did out of the backfield to the Falcons last week. I think those guys are set to go off yet again.
On the other side of the ball, Julio Jones, affectionately known on this podcast as the Julio.
The Julio.
Showed up on the injury report with a calf injury today, all of a sudden. What a surprise. He has a soft tissue injury. But he's projected to get 15.6 points in this one. Sal, you've always been a big the Julio man. Are you fed up yet?
I've been fed up for like 2 years, but he's just such an unbelievable specimen and unbelievable talent. And there's no doubt in my mind that a lot of it has to do with Matt Ryan. Not the injuries, obviously, but the lack of red zone targets and end zone targets and actually completing passes to him in the end zone, constantly overthrowing him out of bounds. It's been frustrating for a while, which is why this year, 4th year of the Falafel League, is the first year I don't have him, because I had him year 1 and was able to keep him, and I threw him back this year and kept Melvin Gordon instead at the same value. And while I have in a lot of other dynasty leagues, so I'd still like to see him perform, I think he's going to pass that number this week. He's due for a big blow-up game here, and he's got to get his first touchdown reception of the season. So I'm going to put Julio up around 20 points for the week. And New Orleans has really stopped nobody. We saw what happened last week with the Bucks. So, yeah, I'm perfectly comfortable saying Julio's going to go over that number this week.
All right, Steve, we talked about the wide receiver 2 position in Atlanta earlier this week, and one of the things that I mentioned was that I am going to have trouble choosing who's going to be the wide receiver 2 every week. We saw in the first week it was Mohamed Sanu. In the second week it was Calvin Ridley. Ridley in this one is projected to get 6.9 points. What do you think about that projection, It's pretty low if he's the wide receiver 2, but it's pretty high if he's the wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I think that it's pretty spot on. I think I would take the over on that. The total for this game is 53, so you have to assume that both teams are going to be moving the ball. They tend to be a little pass happy, these two teams. And with the, Mark Ingram still not playing, Devontae Freeman probably not playing, they're going to be relying on just the 2 running backs. I think they're going to be passing a lot. I would say he's going to go over that. I would be banking on Calvin Ridley steadily taking that role over. So I would be going with him. If you can avoid it, I probably wouldn't be starting either one of these guys because, like you said, it could be the other one just as it could be Sanu just as easily as Ridley. So I would take the over, though, on Calvin Ridley for this week.
All right, that's the over there. So we will move along to the next game on the list. Green Bay will travel or play Washington. I actually don't have the home road in front of me, so I don't know where they are, to be quite honest with you.
They're in Washington.
They are in Washington, so I was correct. I should have stuck with my gut, and Steve, we'll stick with you on this one. I'm not going to talk about your boy Jamal Williams. I'm going to ask you about the other guy. Very, very low projection for Aaron Jones in his first game back from suspension, 3.8. Now, we know that McCarthy came out this week and said that he's not going to be handed anything coming off a suspension. He's going to have to work his way in. So it's 3.8 still seems a little low.
Yeah, it does seem a little bit low because you consider that he's the more dynamic of the running backs in terms of his playmaking ability. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, but it's just all about how often he's able to get onto the field. We talked about that Jamal Williams, the one thing that he seems to do better than Aaron Jones is to pass protect. And with Aaron Rodgers playing out of the shotgun, nursing that knee, that's going to make a big deal. That's going to play a huge factor into their playing time. So I think 3.8 might be a little bit low. He can eclipse that in one play, and that's that. But you would definitely be playing fire to just automatically put him in your lineup this week. I'm not necessarily saying that you start Jamal Williams instead of him. I'm saying that you probably take this week off from the Green Bay backfield and wait to see how it shakes out a little more down the line.
All right. On the receiving end for the Packers, Randall Cobb is projected at a 9.8, Geronimo Allison at an 8.7. This is another situation similar to Atlanta where I think it's going to be hard every week to predict who's going to get the wide receiver 2 looks. We know Devontae Adams going to get his, but we'll stick with you again, Steve. Who's your wide receiver 2 here, and which one of these guys is going to out? It's my opinion that at a 9.8 for Cobb and an 8.7 for Allison, one of them is going to outproduce their prediction, and the other one's not going. Is going to underproduce. So, where are you landing on these?
I would probably land with Randall Cobb, but I'm not wanting to rely on either one of these guys. I go with Cobb because he's done it and he's been there before, but it's really Devontae Adams for me, and that was really the only one that I'm going for. Randall Cobb can disappear like we saw a little bit last week. He did not have the game that a lot of people were expecting after his week 1. But Geronimo Allison is definitely somebody that I've been keeping an eye on. There's enough passing to go around in that offense. And when you have a chance to put someone on your team that's catching passes from Aaron Rodgers and has an opportunity to gain some more targets and that kind of thing, you have to take a look at that. So I'd go with Randall Cobb for the time being, but Allison is definitely someone I'm keeping an eye on.
I'll throw this out there. This comes from Rich Rebar. He points out that Cobb traditionally struggles against the Vikings, but he'll be back on a wide receiver 3 board this week against Fabian Moreau in the interior, who allowed 7 for 76 to Larry Fitzgerald in week 1. So that would definitely put him in an area of going over those numbers, Kevin. So that's something to keep an eye out for.
All right, on the Washington side of the ball, the running back situation, your friend Adrian Peterson gets the heavy prediction here at 11.2. Meanwhile, Chris Thompson not far behind him at a 10.8. Thompson, in my opinion, has been the better runner and pass catcher, and I just think he's better for that, a better fit overall for the offense. I like what they're doing with Adrian Peterson. They're going to keep working him because why not? You gotta have someone who can pound the middle a little bit more. But what are your thoughts, Sal, on these two guys and how those predictions will shake out? 11.2 for Adrian Peterson, 10.8 for Chris Thompson.
Yeah, I think it's entirely too low for Chris Thompson. I know this is 0.5 PPR, but the guy had 13 receptions for 92 yards last week, and he is the best running back on that team right now. I would not be starting Adrian Peterson this week. He's not playing for me. And I have him in the Falafel Dynasty League, and I luckily have Lindsey, who I was able to pick up, and I'll probably be playing him over him. It doesn't look good right now. He's game script dependent. So if they get behind a high scoring Green Bay offense, they're not going to be running the ball. So this is a bad week for Adrian Peterson. You're going to have to look for your spot plays. As long as he's healthy, look for spot plays throughout the year for him. He's not a consistent every week fantasy player.
All right, our old friend Jordan Reed comes in with a projection of 10.1 in this particular matchup. He's had an up and down season, 12.8 in the first week, 6.5 the second week. The receptions 4 and 6 and yardage 48 and 55 have been relatively similar. So it's really just that touchdown. Is he touchdown dependent for the rest of the year, Sal? And if so, does he catch one here and ultimately go over that 10.1?
Yeah, I think he is a little touchdown dependent because they haven't had a lot of success with the wide receivers in this offense. So he's become a little bit more of a security blanket or a dump off guy for Alex Smith. So he's not really getting down the field for those big plays that we've come to expect from him. I'd like to see a wide receiver step up and take a little bit of heat off of him. But for now, it's been dump off passes to Thompson, dump off passes to Reed. So as I said, 13 receptions for 92 yards for Thompson. Neither guy is getting a ton of yardage with their receptions, but they're definitely the two guys who are getting the most out of the offense. So yeah, hopefully they get inside the red zone and he has an opportunity for a target or two. Right now, yes, I would say that he's a touchdown dependent tight end one.
Well, you know what happened last week is that they ran into that Colts defense.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, it's hard to move against them, right? I mean, what are you going to do? All right, we'll stick with you, Sal, as we move into the Eagles and the Colts game because your boy Corey Clement projected to get 10.9 points in this one. Obviously, we have heard that Ajayi might not play, looking less likely that he'll be on the field. Running back has sort of been a mess for the Eagles in general, but Corey Clement looked good last week. What are your thoughts on 10.9 for him?
I think especially if Ajayi is not going to play, that we will see a big game out of Corey Clement. He had 88 total yards and a touchdown last week on just 11 touches. This guy has never gotten more than 12 touches in a game. And every time he gets something above 10, he produces. He definitely has talent. He definitely has ability. He's going to be first in that backfield this weekend with nobody but a rookie and Wendell Smallwood to challenge him. As much as I've liked Wendell Smallwood in the past, I would definitely not be taking him here. And I believe last week the Colts gave up they've given up 22 receptions for 187 yards on the season to running backs, but they gave up that 13 for 92 last week to Chris Thompson, as we were just talking about. So if Ajayi is out, he is a streamline player for me in all formats, and I think it'll be his best day as an NFL player.
All right. Zach Ertz is projected to get 12 points in this one. We've seen Ertz kind of be a little quieter than I think we are used to from him. 14.9 last week, which was a good game, 11 catches for 94 yards, no touchdowns on the season, only 7.3 points in the first game, 5 for 48 there, Steve. Does Zach Ertz continue to build off what he did last week, or is he back to a little bit more like the first week?
I think he will continue to build. You got Carson Wentz coming back into this game. I think that they will be looking to get the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible. They don't want him taking any hits his first week back. And so I think that he can definitely is going to continue working his way back up to where he was drafted as the third or fourth tight end overall. I think that's where he's getting.
Who was taking third over him?
I don't know. Evan Ingram maybe a little bit.
We'll get to him later.
But yeah, I think Zach Ertz is who we think he is, and you put him out there, and Carson Wentz likes him. So yeah, I'm not putting Zach Ertz on the bench by any means. I think I
almost slammed the table.
I appreciate you not doing that.
They are.
That's right.
It makes for terrible podcasting when you slam the table. All right, Steve, we'll continue on because the next two, obviously, this question is meant for you. Jack Doyle projected at 8.7. Eric Ebron projected at 6.1. We've talked about it a lot as far as the usage. Jack Doyle's on the field more. He's getting more targets. He's just simply doing less with them right now. Is this the week that it flips back the other way and Doyle outproduces Ebron?
I'm not entirely sure because Jack Doyle popped up on the injury report today dealing with a hip issue. So a player that I have believed in for a few years now, Eric Ebron, is finally going to get the opportunity to play.
I love it.
To play multiple snaps, he's going to get the volume on the field this week if Jack Doyle sits out. And then I don't know if he's ever going to be taken off the field again because he might just run away.
That was such a pure Sal move. It was such a Sal move. It's not even funny. Obviously, you've been podcasting with him for way too long, so we'll move along. Sal, T.Y. Hilton is projected at 13.2. Obviously, dealing with some injuries this week, but as far as I know, it looks like he's trending towards playing. Andrew Luck hasn't been quite himself, his old self yet, but he has been relatively efficient. Obviously, that defense is keeping them in games, but T.Y. Hilton, can he have the big breakout game that we've seen him have before?
Yeah. So on the injuries, real quick, I was driving home from work today, and I have a couple of different Twitter people set up for notifications. One of them is Fantasy Labs. It's a great follow on Twitter, and they post all kinds of different statistics, but injuries. And for the entire ride home, it was just bloop, bloop, bloop. There are so many people out this today or this week, nursing this, nursing that. I don't think it's an issue for T.Y. Hilton. I think he'll be fine. Yeah, he's got 11 targets each week this year, and we've watched the Eagles now. While the Eagles have been phenomenal at defending the run both last year and the first 2 weeks of this season, they've given up big games to wide receivers. Julio Jones, 10 for 169 in week 1. Mike Evans, 10 for 83 and a touchdown last week. Deshaun Jackson with the big, deep touchdown to start off the game last week. So this Philadelphia secondary has been vulnerable. So I think this is a great play for T.Y. Hilton. I think maybe we see a nice game out of Andrew Luck this week. I think that they're going to have to obviously score to keep up with Philadelphia with Wentz coming back. So I think there'll be a big passing game for the Colts this week.
All right. And before we move along to the next game, I just want to remind everyone to head over to gridironexperts.com and check out all the stuff they got going on there. We are a member of their podcast family. If you're listening to us on their podcast feed, thank you for that. You already know how great they are. If you're not listening to us on that feed, for one, check out their feed because there's another great podcast on there as well. And then
they're on 2 now, by the way.
Two.
The Bittersweet podcast is now also up on there.
That's right there. So if besides that, you want to check out the website. They have everything from rankings to daily fantasy advice, depth charts. You can go to their store and look at some really awesome. You get some really awesome gear, fantasy football gear. Just a great site all around. So definitely check that out. And thank you to them for having us be a part of their family. All right, let's keep moving along here. The 49ers will play the Chiefs. Marquise Goodwin out last week, projected to get 10.9 points this week. Steve, Marquise Goodwin coming right back in and leading the team. He's actually has the highest projection of all the receivers.
Yeah, I would not be banking on that. I don't even know necessarily if he's 100% coming back to play. And players coming back off the hamstring injury always make me a little nervous. He is not a Julio Jones type guy. He's not one of those elite wide receivers yet. So, yeah, projecting him for 10 points first week back. I do know that Vegas, in particular, is expecting a lot of points to be put up in this game. This is the highest total of the week. Would you guys care to guess what the total is real quick? That's not quick. Not quick at all.
I would say 54 points.
Whoa.
We both said 54.
Wow. You guys are both low. It is 57 for this game. That is the total. That's high.
A lot of points.
That is a lot of points. So, yes, the majority of them, I would believe, are going to be scored by Kansas City, but there will be points to be scored for the 49ers as well. 10 points for Marquise Goodwin. Too much for me. I would say under this first week back for him.
Having said that, with all the points that San Francisco is going to score, according to Steve, Sal, Matt Breida ran away with the job last week and looked great. Alfred Morris has been kind of, Alfred Morrising, although he was relatively effective with 9 points last week. But is Breida going to outscore 11, which would be his projection for the week?
Yeah, I'm going to say in a full PPR or 0.5, even 0.5 PPR, I'm going to say yes, this is going to be a pass-heavy game in order for the 49ers to keep up with the Chiefs' high-flying offense that has produced 10 passing touchdowns in the first 2 weeks. They're going to have to throw a lot, and they're going to have to throw to the running backs, and that is not Morris's strong suit, obviously. So I think this is a great spot for Matt Breida. I would absolutely have him in there, and I think he's at or above 11 points.
All right. We will look over to the other side of the ball with the Kansas City Chiefs, and Kareem Hunt has been effective, but not quite what you expected him to be, Sal. In this one, he's projected to get 14.9, which is, relatively similar to what the kind of games we've seen from him so far. So that might be an accurate projection. Do you think this is the one where he kind of breaks away, given that we do think it will be a high-scoring game?
Well, if they've scored high in both games. And the passing touchdown, the receiving touchdown for him last week carries his week. But that's really I want to feel like he's going to run right through that, and maybe this is the week where they get up high enough and like as Steve said on the wrap-up show just the other day, that they pound him in the fourth quarter and he gains a ton of yardage that way. So I'll say, a 15-point total would probably be right about it. So I'll go above.
All right. I tend to agree with you there. I think this is the game where he's going to see a real breakout. I don't know that San Francisco's run defense is really what it needs to be yet. And I could see I could see Kansas City trying to get him going for the season. We've seen him be a really, somewhat of a streaky player. Obviously, that was mostly Andy Reid's fault last year. But, if they can get him rolling, he's a guy that really can take over a game for them. And while they haven't needed it, they will need it at some point. So, all right. Sammy Watkins had a big game last week, was basically invisible the week before, Steve. He's projected to get 9.5. We know, Tyreek Hill's going to eat, usually going to be see a lot of maybe not see a lot of targets, but at least be good. He's going to get some good looks. Obviously, he's the number one target in that offense. But 9.5 for Sammy Watkins. He's a guy that I think we're going to see, appear and disappear all season. Do you think he gets 9.5 in this one?
No, I'm going to say this is a disappear week for him. I'm going to go below. I think that he would need to get a touchdown. I don't think he would get enough volume to necessarily. And we know he's a big play guy as well. He could catch, just 2 passes and eclipse that 9 points. But I'll say under this week. I think they'll go back to Tyreek Hill a little bit more. And I really do think that they're going to try and focus on Kareem Hunt as the center of their game plan this week. What's nice about Kansas City is that they've got skill players on their entire offense. They can pick which weeks they want to feature certain players and make an entire game plan around that person. So I think this week it's going to be Kareem Hunt. I think Sammy Watkins comes back down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I was concerned that they would cancel each other out a little bit this season, but I do think that Tyreek's going to be kind of, matchup proof, I guess, for lack of a better word there. So Sammy will be the guy that just disappears from time to time. And you're right. This could be one to do that. Hey, Sal, I hate doing this. I really hate asking you for advice or help in any way, shape, or form because, well, really, I don't trust you. And more so, it just makes me feel bad about myself to do so. But I've been struggling with my DFS this year, and you seem to be doing pretty well. Can you help me out? What do I need to do?
I'm glad you came to me, Kevin. First of all, smart choice. You've noticed the nice new shirts I'm wearing and all the fancy diamonds from all the money I'm winning. And I'm doing that because I'm going to thequantedge.com where they have the tools you need to play like a pro. With their lineup optimizer, injury tool, wide receiver cornerback matchups, and head-to-head tool, you will be armed with everything you need to win. You can make up to 150 lineups in seconds, see matchups to exploit, and compare players to help you make the right decision that you're on the fence about at thequantedge.com. You'll get exclusive access to their industry experts, articles, podcasts, and the TQE community by participating in a premium membership chat, which, by the way, I got an email today, has been upgraded. So it's new and improved already. So we here at the Fantasy Football Fun House have a special deal for our loyal listeners. If you use promo code FFFunhouse right now, you will get $10 off the first month of your subscription. $10 off of $39.99, just a mere $29.99. You'll make that back in a week. I saw today that the guy who does the weekly betting article is $666 for the season. You bet money, just pick every game that he's betting. You're going to be up. You're going to be ahead of the game. So go there now. They have everything from draft to FanDuel to DraftKings to straight gambling, the prop bets, and they're very upfront about everything. They post their results. You'll know how everybody's producing. It's all right there. Nothing's taken down. You can check it all. FF Funhouse, get $10 off now.
All right, we will move along into the Raiders. Sal,
that was nice.
How'd I do? Do all right?
Yeah, you did better than the Raiders. That's for sure.
Raiders have definitely been spotty this year. Derek Carr. We don't talk a lot of quarterbacks because most of our listeners tend to play in the one quarterback leagues. But I'm curious. Only projected to get 14.7. Obviously, he was miserable in game 1. Much better in game 2. Sal, do you think that he continues to improve and really grasp the Gruden offense, and we see him connect with Amari Cooper a little bit more and outscore that 14.7 projection?
Boy, I mean, the Dolphins have played a little bit better than I think anybody has thought. It's crazy because did you see he completed over 90% of his passes last week?
Yes, 29 of 32.
Nuts.
And he still didn't translate over to a good fantasy football game. I mean, I think Derek Carr's, his ceiling is like 15 at this point. You know what I mean? So I'm going to say no. I just don't think that they're good. I don't think they're good. I think they find ways to lose. I see this as the type of game where the Dolphins have won 2 games people didn't think they were going to win, and they started to get confident. And I think they come out and they play confident. And the Raiders have 7 total points in the second halves of both games. They don't know how to finish games. They don't know how to come out of the locker room. I attribute that to poor coaching and poor composition of the roster. So, no, Derek Carr wouldn't be starting for me other than 2 QB leagues, which is where I have him in so many of those. So he'll be playing for me in those leagues. But if it's a single QB league, he's on my bench.
All right. Meanwhile, Marshawn Lynch has outscored his projection of 11.1 in both matchups that he's played so far. 11.9 the first week, 13.8 the second week. Unfortunately for him, that's because he scored a touchdown in each of those games. I don't know that you can count on that. We've talked about how you can't really count on touchdowns going forward. There will be a game where he doesn't have one. As you said, Miami's been playing a little bit better. Sal, does he get more than 11.1 in this one?
Yeah, I think if he doesn't get the touchdowns, he doesn't. He's only got 117 total yards through 2 games. But I'm going to say he gets it because I think that's how they're going to have to score in this game. I think they need to get rushing touchdowns, and they probably find themselves in close to the end zone and given the ball. So, yeah, again, it's so tough to predict touchdowns, but I think he'll continue at right about 60 yards at a touchdown this week.
All right, on the other side of the ball, Miami's been winning somehow, but they haven't really been great. Steve, Devontae Parker, he made me so angry last week.
Do not want.
It seemed like a scorned lover just now.
I just mad. I didn't catch the inactive, and I had him in a lineup. It made me very angry.
Ooh.
It was a DraftKings that I did earlier in the week, and I forgot.
That's your fault having him in there, even if he was active.
Yeah, like
That's
I said,
right.
It was a DraftKings. Yeah, I mean, well, he was very cheap, but he's projected to get 7.6 in this one.
Kevin, thequantedge.com, bud.
Yeah, I know. Listen. That's why I asked for help. Can he get anywhere near 7.6
against this defense? Hard. A good pass rusher is hard to find. I'll tell you what.
I'm about to turn my whole computer and microphone upside down and just start throwing stuff.
Oh man, It's possible, sure, but I do not think that it's going to happen. I've completely given up on Devontae Parker. I don't think that Ryan Tannehill is an exciting passer. I don't think they would let him throw the ball very often if they did not have to. So no, I don't think that Devontae Parker, first game of the season for him, is gonna hit the 7-point mark. I don't.
Meanwhile, Kenny Stills has a phenomenal average for the season. He's averaging 13 or 14 points a game, which is great for him.
Yeah.
But and after the first week, everyone felt validated by pumping up Kenny Stills. He had 106 yards and 2 touchdowns, over 24 fantasy points, and then he got 2 receptions for 17 yards. His projection in this one is 8.8. Obviously, his average is higher than that, but we just talked about why. What do you think about 8.8?
I think the roller coaster that is Kenny Stills is going to be going back up this week. I think that Devontae Parker is going to come back. I think some focus for some reason will be on him, and I think that Kenny Stills will get deep and get loose, and I think that he's going to end up getting into the end zone again this week. So I like Kenny Stills. I think that he is a good play for definitely a flex type spot. I wouldn't really want to put him in any higher than that. But yeah, I do like Kenny Stills this week.
All right, we will continue on to the Bills and the Vikings. This is going to be a tough one for the Bills. Could be a bloodbath all around. Forgetting all of the off-the-field stuff for LaShawn McCoy. Steve? What do you got?
What's the spread for this game? Either one of you guys want to take a guess?
Well, I'm going to assume they're expecting the Vikings to score 50 and the Bills to score 3. So I'm going to say 53.
I actually saw it, Steve. So
the spread, Kevin, not the total.
Oh, I'm sorry, the spread. You didn't see the total. Yeah, it's got to be 16.
Whew, that's close.
I saw it. I got it at 16.5. I saw it a little bit earlier. So
yeah, my bookies got it at 17.5 for the Vikings.
That is rough.
Ugly.
So yeah, LaShawn McCoy had a rough week as far as things that came out about him off the field. He had a rough week last week on the field. And he's projected to get 9.4 here. Is there any chance that this offense gets anything even remotely close to a drive which would allow him to score 9.4 points, Steve?
I don't even know why they would let LaShawn McCoy play this week. He's nursing that rib injury, and I think he escaped without a fracture. But from what I've read on the old Twitter from some smart doctors that are on there, I'm pretty sure they're real. The injury that he has can actually be more painful and cause more problems than an actual fractured rib. So I think he's going to be nursing that a little bit against this Vikings defense. I do not think he's going to sniff 9 points. He has not gotten close to that this year. I don't expect this to be the week that he finally gets up there. No, I'm not starting any Bills at all. None of them, not one, but every single Viking.
All right, Sal, we can go really quickly here. Charles Clay is 4.4. He's done absolutely nothing.
I'll make it even quicker for you, Kevin. I said on the wrap-up show just yesterday that if you're starting anybody on the Bills, including LaShawn McCoy, you're an idiot.
Moving along,
goes to the bench.
Moving along, we're expected to start everyone for our Vikings. Does that include Kyle Rudolph, Sal, at an 8.1 projection?
Yes, absolutely. I would start Kyle Rudolph if his cousin is in town and he wants to play. Give him a jersey, put him on the field. Anybody who puts pads on and wears purple gets in for me.
All right, and then the two wide receivers have both been phenomenal this season. Thielen is projected at 12.7, Diggs at 11.3. We can do this really quickly, and I'll ask both of you. We'll start with you, Sal. Which one scores higher? I'm going to guess you both think they're going to both outperform their projections. And which one scores more points this week?
Maybe they'll take turns, and this week it'll be Thielen.
I'm going to lean Thielen this week as well.
Hey, Kevin, before you move on, I saw this stat too today. Stefon Diggs leads wide receivers in fantasy scoring over weeks 1 to 2 in all of the last 3 seasons. He's caught 37 passes for 586 yards and 6 touchdowns in those games.
September, huh?
Yeah, so he's always been good to start the year, but as we remember last year, he did disappear after week 2 for a little bit, and people were like, what's going on here? And he ended up leveling out and having a good season. But this is just a smash matchup for the entire offense, and they're both going to be wide receiver top 5s again this week.
Kirk Cousins, Steve, I love you.
Steve, the Bengals will take on the Panthers, and this could be the first time they're really tested. I mean, I know they've gone up against two great defenses in Indy and Baltimore, but Carolina's defense been pretty good. We're going to talk about Tyler Boyd in this one. 18.1, 6 for 91 and a touchdown last week. He's projected to get 8.4. We talked about, I talked about him a little bit as a guy with a safe floor going forward. 8.4 sounds like it might be around that floor, but do you think that he's going to outscore that projection this week? And even more so, do you think he can do it going forward?
Am I allowed to call a push? Am I allowed to say that they nailed that projection? I think he's going to land right on it.
No.
Oh, all right. Well, then I will go slightly under because we did talk about it. He's not going to get the touchdown every single week, so he's not going to gain a ton of yards either. He's more short to intermediate route running. He's got the volume in terms of targets. What he does with that, I think this week we'll see him come down just a little bit. I don't think that he's going to end up getting into the end zone, so I'll go a little bit under that. But he is somebody that I've added in some leagues. I was able to get him in one of the 16-team leagues that we were in. Was very happy about that. I'll be able to roll him out as a flex play. So yeah, I do think that going forward, he's someone we're going to be able to rely on. But like you said, it's for more of a floor play, not necessarily expecting the touchdowns. They'll just be nice when they come.
Sal, no Joe Mixon in this one. So Gio Bernard has a projection of 12 points in this one. We haven't seen him really do too much this season, but obviously he's going to get the workload, or at least we expect him to. They'll work in the rookie Mark Walton a little bit, but what are your thoughts on 12 points for Gio?
So just Gio pops up on the injury report today, nursing a knee injury. Newly signed, as in literally signed him like at noon, and then Thomas Rawls was cramping up in practice. He was on the injury report today. I don't know what the hell's going on there. I think Gio will be fine. I think he'll play, and I think he'll exceed those numbers. He was an RB2 when he was starting last year when Mixon was not playing. And he generally, when he gets touches, he produces. And we know what he could do, catching the ball out of the backfield. So as long as he's a full go and healthy, then Gio's locked in for more than 12 points.
It's a good thing that Pittsburgh has Stephen Ridley stashed on their bench, because he would just be, I mean, man, he'd be perfect.
He was in last week, by the way. He's not stashed. He actually played. Not a lot, but I saw him out there.
All right, on the Panthers side of the ball, I'm kind of curious, Sal, your thoughts on Ian Thomas. We know that Greg Olson's going to miss this one. Ian Thomas wasn't super effective last week, but he is a guy that has a lot of athleticism, a rookie that some people have decent expectations for going forward, particularly in Dynasty, where Olson's getting a little older, may retire pretty quickly here. But do you think that we might get a little bit of an extended look at Thomas and see, him sort of start to take that role and make it a little uncomfortable for Olson? He's projected at 5.2 in this.
Okay, so I'll project that he goes over that. He played on 43 pass routes last week. He dropped a touchdown. He dropped a would-be touchdown. The Bengals have given up 12, 124, and 1 to tight ends against the Colts, and they gave up 8, 74, and 1 last week against Baltimore. They have not defended the tight end well, so I think that's a modest projection considering those numbers. And who else is he throwing to? Funches didn't get anything in the end zone last week, so let's go with Ian Thomas. Yeah, over the 5 point, whatever the hell you said.
The 5 point, whatever I said. Okay, great. Yes, 5.2. Cam Newton at 18.7. Steve, give me your thoughts on Cam Newton in this one.
I will say he's going to go over. I think Cam so far has looked more like the Cam Newton that we're used to seeing when he's on his fantasy game. When he's getting the runs, he looked very much – he is their basically third down rusher. He's basically the only one that's getting any kind of good rushing numbers. McCaffrey's getting some good carries, but not being very efficient with those. So their best running back for the however many years Cam Newton has been in the league now is Cam Newton. So yeah, I think that the passing numbers, I like what the Bengals have done. So I think this is going to be a relatively decent scoring game. I think he's going to have the offense there to get over that 18-point mark. I like Cam Newton a lot. I wish I had more of him because I like the way that he's looked so far. What can I say? He's stolen my heart.
And everybody remember that video? Cam Newton. I can never get that little girl out of my head.
The Titans will play the Jaguars. We're not 100% certain on Fournette, but he is practicing. Sal, he's scheduled to or projected to get 15.1 in this one. Obviously, we know that TJ Yeldon also popped up on the injury report this week. So 15.1 seems like a good number for me. I would pull the old Steve Areno and push that. But what do you think?
Yeah, I worry a little bit about that number because if he comes back and they want to take it easy with him and they don't want to push him too much, that number might be a little bit of an overshoot. So I'm going to say under.
I'll say over.
Wow. We want to know why? Because Blake Bortles is back, baby.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the ball, your boy Derrick Henry comes in at a 6.9, Sal.
Disrespectful.
It's just very disrespectful, but seems somewhat accurate. So what are your thoughts there, buddy?
Yeah, it's probably about what he's going to get, if not less. And I saw this stat today. And if the Titans aren't going to be leading, and oh, by the way, Mariota still can't fail his fingers. So if the Titans aren't going to be leading, he's not going to be playing because the Titans have played 69 snaps, either tied or with the lead. And Derrick Henry has now touched Deion Lewis 24-14. But they played 55 snaps where they are trailing, and it's been 22-5 the other way. So unless they could get a lead and keep the lead, it's going to be Deion Lewis dominating touches. So
are you meaning to tell me that you don't think that Blaine Gabbert could lead the Titans out to a lead against the Jaguars where Derrick Henry will be able to come in and run this game into zeros on the clock?
If you call it a revenge game here by Gabbert. No, I don't think so.
Deion Lewis projected to get 10.6 in this one, by the way. So Corey Davis, meanwhile, is projected to get 9.7. He has yet to reach that mark on the season, 9.2 in the first week. He has not been what I thought he was, but strangely enough, he's not that far behind Jarvis Landry, so he could still make up ground. It would be nice.
This ain't gonna be the week.
It would be nice. It would be nice if Mariota could feel his fingers going forward because maybe that would help. All right, let's continue on to the Broncos playing the Ravens. Steve, Phillip Lindsay at a modest 9.8, considering what he's done so far this season. Does he outscore that 9.8?
Yes. I will say yes. I am all aboard the Phillip Lindsay train. Like I've said before when we talked about him last week and on the wrap-up show yesterday, he is game flow. He's not game flow dependent. He's going to be in there when they're behind because he's their pass catching back, and they rely on him when games are close as well. And so I think that he has got a floor on him that is higher than Freeman's, and he is going to be able to outproduce this 9-point projection that I don't know why all the disrespect. I don't get it, ESPN. Disrespect.
All right, Demaryius Thomas on the other hand, 10.7. He was good in the first week, bad in the second week. Steve, does he come back to being a number one receiver, or is this the Emmanuel Sanders show?
I would probably lean
Sanders at 10.9, by the way.
I would lean a little towards Emmanuel Sanders coming back this week, but we've seen, like we did in week one, that they can both get into the end zone in the same week. And so in terms of the projections, I think that Demaryius Thomas is a chance to be a little more efficient with his work this week. He got munched pretty hard last week, too. He was crawling around on the sideline after he got hit pretty hard.
He got munched?
Yeah.
I never heard it called that either.
I would not go with that type of phrasing myself.
Oh, yeah, he got munched pretty good.
Pretty
good there.
All right. On the other side of the ball for Baltimore, John Brown listed at an 8.2. I think we all know that that's crazy, and he will well outscore that projection. Alex Collins at 11.3 and Buck Allen at 8.6. Sal, we've talked about how Buck Allen's kind of chipping away at the Alex Collins workload.
I mean, what has Collins been averaging? About 10, right?
Let me see. I'll pull it up here while you give your analysis of those two.
It is right around 10.
Like I said on the wrap-up show, this is a full-blown committee right now, and I think both guys are low RB2 to flex-worthy players on a weekly basis. Both guys are catching passes. Both guys are getting goal line touches. It's just that Javoris Allen has converted his, and Alex Collins has not. I mean, he did have the touchdown in week one, but his touches have been very, very low. What do you have, 8 and 12 in the first 2 weeks?
No, Buck Allen at 11.7 and 12.9.
Well, I'm talking about Alex Collins.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alex Collins is at, let's see, 10.5 last week, 6.4 the first week.
6.4, he scored a touchdown.
Yeah, not a good game.
Yeah, because he fumbled the ball. That's right, because he fumbled in that game. So that's where you lost 2 points there. So, yeah, I would say I'm gonna project right around 10 points for him. So I'm gonna say under, and probably right around 10 for Javoris Allen. This is what you're looking at with those guys, flex worthy-ish type of plays, touchdown dependent right now. Not that the Broncos are always good on defense, right? So they have a pretty solid run defense. Under, Kevin.
All right. We talked about it earlier. The Giants will play the Texans. And Steve, you mentioned Evan Ingram being that jumping into that third spot, but he has not really played that way yet this year. Had a good game last week, obviously. 7 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown the first week. He was abysmal at 2.8 with only 2 catches for 18 yards. His projection in this one is 8 points even. Seems like based on what he did last week, pretty low, but he seems like he's that type of tight end that's just up and down.
Yeah, you'd like to see the weekly volume even out a little bit and be a little more consistent. And he was helped last week by a garbage time touchdown. It was very late in the game that he was able to score that one. So I would be a little concerned if I were Evan Ingram right now. His target share on the team, as opposed to what it was last year with OBJ in the lineup, is lower. So he's not seeing the same type of volume that he was last year under the same type of circumstances. A lot of that can probably be attributed to Saquon Barkley being there, eating up a lot of targets that might have otherwise been going to Evan Ingram. So I definitely would be a little concerned with him right now. I think that 8 points is a very touchdown dependent number. So I think I'd lead under for this week. I think it's going to be a little closer to week 1 than week 2.
We talked about Will Fuller a little bit on the wrap-up show. The guy just catches touchdowns. What do they say? His touchdown rate was over 12%, which is
70%.
Hey, Kevin, let me read you some of these other numbers, okay? In 5 career games with Deshaun Watson, Will Fuller has caught 21 of 31 targets for 392 yards and 8 touchdowns. His wide receiver finishes in those games are 6, 8, 21, 3, and 6.
That's good.
That's pretty good.
That's not sustainable.
Well, he's projected to get a 9.7 here, Sal. So
what's crazy about those numbers is that it sounds like it is. He keeps doing it every single week.
There was a 21 in there, Steve. So I'm going to say yes. I can't until I don't see it. I'm going to have to keep saying yes.
Meanwhile, really quickly between the both of you, we'll just say, give me a quick yes or no, because I don't know what to do with this guy. I mean, you got to keep rolling him out there. But Lamar Miller projected to get a 13.5. That just seems so high to me.
Wow.
I mean, he's getting the volume, but he's just not very efficient with it, and they're just not that type of offense anymore. Steve, you first. Yes or no?
Yeah, that seems a little high. I'll say no, but I want it to be yes so bad.
Sounds like a first date.
My heart's saying yes.
Okay. Sal?
Yeah, I would agree with Steve on this one. He's not good on first dates. Oh, no, Lamar Miller. No, I don't think that seems like a pretty high number.
Seems high number. We're
not
in agreement.
Targets, by the way, he's not getting targets. It's 4 targets for 2 games. So
there are a lot of weapons there, and they haven't been efficient with the passing game outside of Will Fuller. All right. Ever since we started this podcast, Sal, I have to tell you that people ask me for advice. I don't know why. I'm not sure. I can't figure it out. People ask you for advice?
Yeah, first they keep asking me, why is everybody asking Kevin for advice?
Yeah,
I tell them, he was the only one available at the time. But yeah, no, ever since we have started this, people come, it's like, we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's great. You know what the worst thing is? They actually ask us from time to time who to bet on. And, they've asked Steve that, and we've seen by his article that it's not a good question to ask Steve. But, because the truth is we don't know who's going to win. We have no idea. But you got to check out my bookie, because all of the information that you need to bet is there. Not only can you make the bets there, but they have all the information in order to to win with those bets, Steve. They have a good information for you where you can go check things out. They'll give you lines. They'll give you stats for the season. They'll give you the preseason lines so you can compare how they've changed. It's pretty impressive site. I don't know if you've been over there lately, but a lot of good information.
They basically teach you how to win money from them.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's shocking when you start looking at it, but because the key is who you're betting on is just as important as who you're betting with, and that's why we always tell people to bet with MyBookie. Listen, it's the best bet you can make this season. They've been in business for years. Great reviews online. Mobile site's pretty easy to use. Steve, I know you're technologically challenged. Do you find it easy to use their mobile site?
I do, because I'm not technologically challenged. But yeah, it is very easy to use. And like you said, everything's easy to find. And like Sal said, they're trying to help you win money from them. Not many people do that.
Pretty impressive. We only recommend the service that we use. That's why we're urging you to use MyBookie. You win and they pay. They have in-game live betting, over-unders on fantasy points scored, and the most rewarding perks in the business. So because MyBookie is slammed with new bettors, they want to give everyone their best service possible. So if you're willing to deposit after 7 p.m. Eastern, they'll give you an additional $25 on top, a $25 free play on top of the 100% match on the first $100.
Wow.
So yeah, pretty impressive. So all you got to do is after 7 p.m. if you sign up and use the promo code FFL25, you'll get that extra $25 on top of the 100% match on the first $100. If you want to use that, if you sign up before 7 p.m. for some reason, I don't know why you would turn down free money, but you can still use the code FFL. Again, Sal, they made that very easy so you could remember it. FFL.
I wrote it down.
Good job. I suggest going in after 7 p.m. and getting that extra $25. FFL25 is the code you want to use after 7 p.m. It's up to you guys, but I'd wait till after dinner and take the extra money. You play, you win, you get paid with MyBookie. All right, let's keep moving. The Chargers and the Rams. I was going to start with Austin. I was going to start with Melvin Gordon on this one, who's projected to get 12.2, but I think it's more important because Sal keeps bringing him up and saying how good he is. We have to talk about Austin Eckler, who's only projected to get 5.3 in this one, Sal.
Oh, my God. What is wrong with you people? Who's putting out these projections?
You know who.
I believe it's Mike Clay.
Yep.
Do you know who leads the league in yards per touch in 2018?
Austin Eckler.
Amazingly, it's 9.3 yards for Austin Eckler.
Wow.
What does that mean? That means use it.
Did you want a bigger reaction? Why are you dragging this out? Let's keep moving.
I want Steve to have to go back and edit. Listen, Melvin Gordon was a little banged up last week. He's going to play. I don't think that's a threat or issue, but they're going to want to give him – first of all, they're going up against a stiff defense. Right, so they're not going to let him get abused by that defense for 30+ touches. So Eckler's going to be used, and I think he's going to start to be used even more throughout the season. I don't see why you wouldn't expect him to break 6 points in this game. As good as they are on defense, I'm going to go over for Austin Eckler.
All right, so Mike Williams catching passes. He got a touchdown last week. He's looked pretty good this year. He's at 6.7, Steve. Does Mike Williams continue his his run here as the what I'm calling de facto tight end for the Chargers?
Yeah, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say under. The only wide receiver I'd be starting on the Chargers this week is Keenan Allen, and I'm even a little worried about him because we've seen what this defense has done so far. They've got cornerbacks, Aqib Talib, Marcus Peters. They've got guys out there. Keenan Allen is very good, so I think that he will be able to get some decent numbers, but I am not banking on any of these other guys to be catching passes from Phillip Rivers. I'm not a fan. So, no, I will say under.
Not a fan.
All right. Meanwhile, the wide receivers for the Rams have been phenomenal this season. That offense is cruising, but Brandon Cooks is projected at a 10.9, Cooper Kupp at a 10.3, Robert Woods at a 10.1, so they're all in the same general region. I guess I will ask both of you, starting with Sal, which one of these guys has the highest point total this week?
I'm going to take Robert Woods this week.
And is it that easy? I mean, is it just pick a name out of a hat and you can't go wrong?
They're all very close in targets. He leads them with 18. He leads them in air yards with 268. And he has had a wide receiver 3 or better start in 7 of his past 10 games dating back to last season. And I think he's due to have the bigger game this week. I think that they're going to try to take Brandon Cooks out a little bit more because of the big yardage totals he's had this early in the year. And Cooper Kupp, while he has Scott wanted to point out to me on Twitter the other day that his red zone percentage is one of the highest in the leagues. Not great yardage totals so far this year. So, yeah, it's going to be Woods for me. And it's, just not a little more than a dart throw.
I'm taking Brandon Cooks to get into the end zone and be the guy. And then Todd Gurley to score 4 more touchdowns.
All right. Great. Todd Gurley, 4 more touchdowns. You heard it here first. Probably not first, actually. I'm sure someone said that already.
Taking their material.
We will move along to the Bears and the Cardinals. The Cardinals have just been absolutely dreadful. Larry Fitzgerald is injured, but it looks like he's going to play.
Not for me.
Projected at a 10.8, Sal. Are you suggesting he will be lower than that?
I'm guaranteeing you he'll be lower than that.
Guaranteeing. Ouch. Wow.
Love Larry Fitzgerald. One of my favorites of all time. He's not playing anytime soon.
Do they need to switch to Rosen? Is it time already, or do you give Bradford a couple more weeks?
I think this will be the last week, and I think Bradford's lucky if he gets out of here alive with that. The way Mac doesn't just absolutely rip his head off and thinking it's the football.
All right, on the other side of the ball, Trey Burton, Steve, 7.2 points projection. Again, one of those tight ends that I don't know that you can count. I mean, you're probably going to put him in your lineup because he's probably your tight end. But are you going to expect big points out of him every week? And do you think he gets more than 7.2?
I'm not going to expect big points out of him this week. I think it seemed, maybe it seems like this every year, but so far the tight end position has been, outside of Gronk and Ertz and Kelsey, just so incredibly ugly and touchdown dependent, which it typically seems to be. But it seems like over the last couple of years, there's been an increase in usage in terms of the yardage that these guys were getting. But Trey Burton has not looked great. He got the touchdown last week, but his yardage totals have been absolutely awful. He doesn't have a very good quarterback, in my opinion. And I do not think that he's going to be up and down, just like Evan Ingram. And so I'm going to bank on it being lower this week.
Did just enough to beat me in falafel. It was by a little over 1 point. And what is with that touchdown this year that everybody's doing? It's not even like a shuffle pass. It's the guy comes across the middle and the quarterback just lets go of it in midair. And it's like, I've seen 4 of those already this year. He got one this past week, 35 total yards through 2 games.
I love that that's a touchdown pass. It's just great.
Yeah.
It's a handoff, but
glorified handoff.
All right, the Cowboys will take on the Seahawks, and neither of these teams look even remotely good. So maybe this will be a good game because they're both playing terribly. Alan Hearns has done basically nothing all season, Steve. He's projected to get 6.5. I don't know how you can bank on anything more than a couple of catches. What are your thoughts there? And is there anyone else on the Cowboys outside of Zeke that you are starting?
No, there is not. 6.5 probably. I'd probably go with a push on that just because somebody's got to catch some balls. But I wouldn't feel good about it. I don't like this game at all from a fantasy standpoint anywhere except for, of course, Tyler Lockett. But nope, don't like him either. Not a fan. Russell Wilson did show up on the injury report on Wednesday, nursing a hamstring. Not supposed to be any type of concern with him missing the game, although I will point out that last year in Week 16 when these two teams played, Russell Wilson threw for only 93 yards. So,
yeah, the hamstring sort of feels like I don't really feel like doing this week kind of injury, but we'll see. We'll see. On the other side of the ball, Rashad Penny somehow projected to get 9.2 points, Sal.
No.
What about Brandon Marshall at a 7.6? He has been involved with Baldwin out.
No.
All right, let's move along then.
I think Will Dissly wins the day.
Oh my God.
Will Dissly for the win. All right.
You know what I think, actually? I think Lockett and I think Jerron Brown gets a little bit more involved this week.
I would like to see Deron Brown get a little bit involved. You showed some talent down in Arizona when he was there, and he's a guy that could be something at some point. Who knows?
Something at some point. That's what my mother said about me.
He's better than Amara Darbo, right?
Well, he's not really on the team anywhere.
I know. All right, so the Patriots take on the Lions on Sunday Night Football, and of course, we're going to start with Josh Gordon, who is projected to get 8.9 points after being with the team for 4 days. It'll be at that point. Interestingly enough, on New England radio stations here today, Belichick denied that he was on the team at a press conference. It's just Belichick. Sometimes I think he's hilarious, but even for me, sometimes he goes too far. The guy was literally suited up and practicing, and he said he couldn't talk about him because the transaction hadn't gone through yet. The team had released a statement saying welcoming to the team, and he denied that the transaction had gone through.
I love it.
We're only talking about players that are here.
Exactly. He did.
He's standing behind you, Bill.
He's literally right on the field, right behind you. Yeah. But anyway, 8.9 points, Sal. Do you think there's any chance that he integrates himself to this offense that quickly?
You want to know why I'm going to say yes? Because this is how it goes in New England, right? So, yeah, because they're playing in a primetime game, and they are going to go deep to him at least 2 or 3 times, and he's going to catch one of those. And, yeah, I think that he comes out and just puts up a double-digit output in his game. It's listen, I have Tom Brady for the first time in the Falafel League, so I'm not upset about it, but it's –
yeah, I mean, it'll be 2 catches, but it could be 75 yards and a touchdown. So, all right. Meanwhile, Sony Michel, 8.2 point projection seems a little high given, he was good last week. He was good, but that's a hefty workload to get to for a guy that's only playing his second game in the league, Steve.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take the over on that. I think that the Patriots are going to control this game. We saw him get 13 snaps last week, but what was impressive is that he touched the ball on 11 of those 13 snaps. So when he was in, they were using him as compared to 15 snaps from Rex Burkhead, who only touched the ball 5 times. So I like Sony Michel in this game. I think that this is going to be his coming out party. That's how they say that. That's how people talk.
I think that's how people talk. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ball, the Detroit Lions receivers, everyone's all on the Kenny Golladay train. Marvin Jones, I don't think is going away, and I think he's been better than people have thought. Obviously for fantasy wise, the stats aren't there, but Sal, I know you talked about his targets share is still, relatively where it was. He's projected at 11.8. Meanwhile, Golladay at 10.5. Which one of these guys is the guy you want going forward?
I was a big Marvin Jones guy coming into the season because he produced well for me in years past. And one of the stats that I pointed out is that last week him and Golladay had the same amount of targets. Golladay did a little more with them, but Marvin Jones after 2 weeks leads the league in red zone targets at 6. So I say the likelihood of him getting more red zone targets and the possibility of a touchdown is there for him. With that said, Golladay has a touchdown in each game also. So I'm going to say over for Marvin Jones because they're going to have to score to keep pace with the Patriots, no doubt. It's not going to be a low-scoring, modest game. I don't know, Steve, if you have the totals in front of you for this game, but I'm sure they're up there.
It is Patriots -6.5. The total of this one is 52. I think that Bill is going to look to welcome Matt Patricia to the head coaching circle in the NFL and drop one on him.
All right, we get to the Monday Night Football game, Steelers versus the Bucks, and we'll start off with Fitzmagic. Obviously, 20.2 is the prediction. Why not? Guy's been on fire. Steve, can he keep it up for one more game?
Give me the over, baby. Give me the over. We just saw what Pat Mahomes did with his defense. Oh, yeah.
You're tripling down on Fitzmagic.
Because Ryan Fitzpatrick does not give 2 shits about what anybody thinks about his fantasy stock, and he is going out there and he doesn't care. And he's winging it. He's told that, you get 3 games and then Jameis Winston's coming back and this is his team, blah, 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 blah. That's not the case anymore. He's played his way into a legitimate conversation of whether or not he is going to start this at quarterback for this team for the remainder of the year. And, we've seen the caliber of the teams that they've beaten so far. a Monday night game against the Steelers. Why not? Why would he not try and go and light it up again? So it could end in flames, and he could have -3 points with 5 interceptions. But I'm expecting a good one from him again.
Meanwhile, somehow Deshaun Jackson is only projected to get 8.5 points. I don't see how that's possible with Fitzpatrick in the lineup, Sal.
You might have that on the first play of the game.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm assuming you're taking the over there.
I'll take the over.
All right, well, then let's talk about some Steelers. Big Ben Roethlisberger, road Ben, 18.2 in this one. Normally, I'd say that's an easy win, but on the road, you never know with Ben, Steve, or Sal. What do you think?
Boy, I'm going to, with everything that's gone on this week with Antonio Brown, I'm going to say Antonio Brown is going to get fed in this game.
Yes.
And I think that helps the numbers for Ben Roethlisberger just go way up. We know the road home splits, but while the Bucs have been scoring like crazy, they haven't stopped anybody either. So, yeah, I'm going to go over on this one.
And that was my next question. Juju Smith-Schuster, who we saw have the big game in the 19 targets or whatever, 12 points projection in this one. Meanwhile, Antonio Brown 16.7, Sal. So ESPN seems to agree with you on this one.
It's too low.
Yeah, I would say 3 touchdowns for Antonio Brown this week. He's
Wow.
going to have the A.J. Green type of game, only thing, real yardage.
Yeah.
All right, so we're looking for a historic game for AB, which I agree with. I can see that coming. So that's it. We're done. We've gone through all of the games. We can't give you any more information, even if we tried. So, Steve, why don't you just wrap it up?
All right. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Fantasy Football Funhouse. You can find us on Twitter at FF Funhouse. You can find us on Facebook and on Instagram. And, of course, fantasyfootballfunhouse.com, where you can find these podcasts. And I think that's about it right now. Right? Is that about it? I think that's about it.
Plug my work over on Fanball. You could check out my contribution to the Sleeper and Landmine columns. And Wednesdays are quarterbacks, Thursdays running backs, Fridays wide receivers, and Saturdays are tight ends. Sunday mornings we do bold predictions. Check them out. It's a good time. And support our sponsors, thequantedge.com. Use code FFFunhouse to keep up with the pros and win some money and not be a Kevin. And go over to mybookie.com, put in FFL, as you heard Kevin say not too long ago, and start winning some money with all that knowledge that you've taken on from thequantedge.com.
Hey, Sal, if I check out Fanball, do I have to read other people or can I only read you? Do they have like some kind of filter where I can just filter out everyone else but Sal?
I have an author page, and I can send that link to you.
I've heard something about that author page.
There's some great articles over there. And actually, while you're there, go to fanball.com and put a little money down on some DFS. Support the team.
Speaking of shekels, if you have any to spare, obviously I always mention that you should add a charitable aspect to your fantasy playing experience. We are trying to do that with a buddy of ours who plays in a bunch of our leagues, Corey. Grummert is his name, and you can check out my Twitter feed. My pinned tweet is a link to a GoFundMe for his family down in North Carolina who has lost a large portion of everything they own, and they're really in need of some help. So if you have a couple of bucks, it'd be great if you could help him out and his family. So check that out. Whatever you can do to help is always great. We will be back next week, and that's it.